I'm Kevin Casey. I'm a professional mixed martial arts fighter. And right now what I'm about to do is issue a warning out to all other competitors.
I don't want overs. I just expect them to happen.
Fatty's gonna fatty his real.
He is terrible!
He was gobbling fucking wieners and buns.
I'm gonna go quick because I don't give a fuck about anything that's gonna happen on Saturday.
Welcome back, fight fans. We are back this week with a Fight Night card. I'm here this week with the Canadian, or the tall Canadian rather, and the Kentucky Sodsman. Sorry. The Canadian teenager. It's my understanding you were at UFC 215. How was that? Good time?
It was a bit of a roller coaster. It was pretty fun. You know, our friend Trish came to town, showed her around town, and we enjoyed the open workouts and weigh-ins. And
so when you say you took her around town, you mean you drove up and down the street? I mean, there's not much there, right?
Size-wise, it's a pretty big city. There's just not an excessive amount of going on here.
I mean, I didn't say it wasn't like 20 miles up and down. I was just saying there's like one street and it just goes and goes and goes. I mean, you got a lot of land out there.
That's fair. But yeah, it was good. And then we were sitting and having some drinks with Aaron Bronstetter, who kind of runs TSN or the
guy.
UFC. Yeah, the UFC on TSN, and
that's our boy.
Yeah, he may or may not be an avid listener of the Anal Cyst, but
friend of the MMA Analysis.
Yeah. And then the news hit that we weren't going to be able to see DJ break the record, and me and Trish were both very, very depressed. But the fights ended up, for the most part, pretty good. The main event we'll talk about was not as good as it should have been, but all in all, a pretty fun fight week, and I can't wait to see another one soon.
Okay, then. Wes, how's everything going with you? I guess it wasn't as exciting watching the fights from home, but you didn't have to go across the Canadian border and deal with the frigid cold air that a September Western Canada trip would bring you.
It was like 30 degrees all week. Celsius.
Yeah, it sounds freezing.
Celsius. So what's that? Like 80?
Yeah. Okay.
Like 85?
I don't know what that means. I heard freezing temperatures. I heard 30.
It was warm as shit.
Yeah,
30 is warm in Canada.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, sitting here trying to rip off my Twitter off my computer here.
Okay.
I wish they wouldn't put these damn favorited tweets in my timeline of people I don't follow, and it's all this John Jones, these sanctimonious pricks that act like he's the only dude that's ever done a PED in the history of fighting and cage fighting. But whatever, I need to not get worked up. This dude, like Sean said, post my crying DC pick and just look at that a little bit. The paperweight champion of the world. But yeah, man, it was I thought it was a pretty good card. Can't wait to talk about it. Break it down.
Our friend Wes is a little bit triggered there, Jay.
I see that. I mean, wow.
It's just something about Bones, man. I know he's an idiot. I'm not gonna try to take up for the dude anymore. I'm not. I'm done with that. He's a fuck up. He deserves everything he gets, but he's the only dude out there where these people come out of the woodwork and act like. I mean, he's hated, man. He is hated. He's almost become the Floyd of UFC, and it's like, you've seen his pay-per-view with DC does almost 1 million, I think, because of it. People want to see him lose now, but we're not going to see. We're not going to see any of him for probably 4 years. So that's what rubs me the wrong way, though. It's like, oh, these people want, they're like, I can't remember who was tweeting about it earlier, but they're like, I think it was Puke Thomas was tweeting about. It's like you got to think about what you want here. It's like you all want this testing and stuff, and I think USADA kind of is like, man, they botch a lot of shit. You see all the false tests and shit, and all the people that's fought it already and gotten tainted supplements and shit. Not saying that was Bones, but it's like it's now gotten to the point where it's going to start affecting the product. Is that what you want? Is that what you really want in your cage fighting? Two dudes trying to knock each other's heads off. Is that you want the product start to be affected? Because that's what's going to happen now. You don't get the best fighter of a generation for 4 years, and there's going to be more. There's going to be more guys that's not going to be fighting. But whatever, man. I'm triggered. I'm just mainly mad that we're not going to probably get to see the greatest fighter to ever live, maybe ever anymore. Like 4 years for Bones, that mind of his, man, he might be in a bad place in 4 years. So that just sucks for everybody.
They'll kill some fools in Japan. Don't worry, Wes.
That'd be awesome. I'm okay with that.
I'm fine with him going and marking guys in Risen. Hell, could you imagine Bones in a one night tourney and shit over just crushing
these the grounded opponents and shit?
We don't deserve that.
God, that'd be good shit, man.
But we don't deserve that.
It's true.
This community doesn't deserve that. They really don't.
We don't deserve anything nice.
No, definitely not that. I mean, really no. But anyway, last week, New Sean was there. We'll see if he has a little different perspective on some of these bouts that we do. But let's start on the preliminary card. Cajun Johnson, I believe, was a plus 1,500 underdog heading into round 3. Lands a hero shot, knocks out Adriano Martins, and definitely hurt the little Gamble Master, consensus. And then the Fight Pass preliminary headliner, really the only fight I didn't watch, the Canadian-Indian fighter Arhan Buller defeats Luis Enrique by decision, and I guess was New Sean's nap time. New Sean, thoughts on those? If you were awake.
Oh, Adriano Martins, man.
Yeah.
He has literally no one to blame but himself in this fight. I don't know, man. I think it's over for him after seeing his fight against Leonardo Santos, where he wouldn't pull the trigger, and then same with this one. I mean, he had Cajun Johnson rocked in the first, and then he just literally wouldn't throw strikes. I watched this a second, from home, and you said that Cajun Johnson was a plus 1,500 favorite or underdog going into the third, which I think is.
I thought he was.
Yeah, I bet you're right. I just think that's kind of crazy considering I think Cajun Johnson won that second round. There wasn't much happening, but Adriano Martins landed 5 strikes in that second round, literally.
It was
5.
Close. It was a close round.
And I think Cajun Johnson landed they were obviously not as hard, but I think he landed 20 or something in the second. But I mean, it's shitty for Gamble Master and people who lost money, but I kind of thought it was cool because that's a guy that has stood up to the UFC and he knocked the fuck out of Martins, and he wasn't supposed to win, and it kind of had everything going against him, and he pulled it out. So that was kind of cool to see. And as for Buller, that was a pretty slow fight. He does have some skills. He was parrying a lot of Henrique's Henrique's strikes. But the tough part about him is I don't think he has much power, and that's bad news in heavyweight because guys are going to stick around and then knock your block off.
Wes, thoughts on the first 2 fights on the card?
Man, yeah, that Martins fight was just... And I wasn't invested in him as a lot of people I saw were, but still. And I agree with Sean. I think the second was kind of close, but I just think the momentum was kind of on Martin's side. So
yeah,
just figured that was probably 2-0 going into the third. But Sean's right, man. I mean, he just couldn't pull the trigger. And you see, he was still winning the fight, not pulling the trigger the whole time. It should have been that easy. I don't know about that dude. And, the Canadian that dude just, if he don't get in shape, man, he was just totally gassed in the third. I mean, and like Sean said, if you don't have power in the heavyweight division, guys are going to stick around and end up knocking you out. And especially if you're gassed in the third, they're really going to knock you out. I'm surprised he survived, honestly. So yeah, I don't. There was a lot of hype. Another the Canadian hype on a dude going into that fight that I don't know. If he don't get in better shape, he's not going to last in that division.
All right, next fight's up. We're on the televised prelim card. Alex White TKO'd Mitch Clark in what became Mitch Clark's last ever MMA bout. Rick Glenn really took it to Gavin Tucker, beating him, derailing a bit of a hype train. Ashley Evans-Smith lands a takedown, but then Sarah Moras once again controls an opponent from the bottom, ends up getting a sub in the first round. And then the biggest upset of the night by far, Caitlin Vieira takes down Sarah McMahon, Olympic silver medalist in wrestling, and then submits her for easily the biggest win of her career. Nushan, thoughts on those?
Man, that was a rough Fox Sports 1 card. Mitch Clark, just too tough for his own good. That fight could have been stopped a lot earlier, which is kind of a thing that was talked about quite a bit about this card. Alex White looked really good. His strikes were very, very accurate. Maybe he has a little something here because he looked all right, but it was against Mitch Clark, so got to temper your expectations a bit. Rick Glenn, I was hoping he would win one round, so I would cash my plus 3.5 bet. He did a little bit more than that. Yeah, Gavin Tucker, that fight should have just been stopped. Dude's got 4 broken bones in his face. Like, I know he's a little bit older for a prospect, I guess, but you still got to
Canadian.
You got to save your fighter, man. Like, whether it's, that terrible ref or your corner, you got to save your fighter. And I know these guys don't make much, and you see this more in boxing where guys will throw in the towel early, but that's not good to see. And then 2 women's fights. Actually, all 3 women's fights I got wrecked on, betting-wise. I hit some awesome, just crazy long shots from a little tips from headquarters, but I got wrecked on the girls' fights. Sarah Moras, I late added over 2.5 on that, just subs Ashley Evans-Smith, like no big deal. And then Sarah McMahon did the old mom quit. Do you see those mounted strikes? Holy shit. That was terrifying. I can't believe she didn't kill Caitlin Vieira.
That was prime Mark Coleman ground and pound right there, son. Prime. I thought Alex White looked pretty good. You're right. It was Mitch Clark. But, man, he looked pretty good, man. He almost kind of reminds you a little bit of Vic, almost with the frame long. Knows how to, use that distance really well. That was a good fight for Alex White. Yeah, man, the Gavin Tucker thing, like, I tweeted right after that fight that's just an absolute career-changing fight for Gavin Tucker. Like, that dude's never going to be the same. 4 broken bones in his face.
It was scary watching him go past because we got tickets like that. We were right beside where the fighters, like right along the railing where the fighters walk out, and fuck, that was one of the worst things I've ever seen.
I bet, man. Yeah, I mean,
Hey, do you guys want to Patreon John Snowden to fights all around, and so you can get exclusive content from Jonathan Snowden?
Oh,
exclusive.
I think I might rather Patreon the dude Robin Black just for the comedy over fucking Snowden. But yeah, as far as the ref, that dude, we shouldn't have expected anything less being up in that area from everything that's happened. But his corner is as much at fault. I don't want to say as much as fault because it's the ref's job to protect a fighter. But man, if you have anybody that cares about you in your corner, they should have stopped that fight. and Gavin Tucker made $12,000 for that fight.
For 4 broken bones in his face.
Yeah, like that dude literally, if he was not under UFC insurance like they are now in American, I mean, you're looking at $100,000 worth of surgeries and shit probably. That's just crazy, man. Yeah, just career changing beating. And I think our boy Sean Carey said it like, whoever he fights next, whatever the line, you got to fade him. Like, absolutely got to fade him. Morass, man, that was a nasty armbar. I think she dislocated Evan Smith's elbow. That was nasty. And then, McMahon was one of the fights that hurt me pretty bad. That was just fucking, I don't know, man. Like we said, go watch that little video of her ground and pound. It was hilarious, man. So, yeah, that was a big upset. I still don't know what to think of Vieira, though. I don't know how good she is, honestly. McMahon did take her down pretty easily and mounted her, was trying to drop bombs. She missed like every one of them.
Every single one.
Yeah, she, somebody else that's a little bit more accurate on top might have done some damage there. So I don't really know how good Vieira is yet. But that was still a big win, biggest win of her career. Still, that was just, man, McMahon had been on a pretty good run, was finishing chicks and stuff. So, major letdown there.
Yeah, I think Vieira is one to watch in this division. She's very physically strong. She's super young. I think she's only 25 or 26. Actually, let me check that. She's 26, just turned 26 a few weeks ago. And she's from Manaus, same Amazonian town where Jose Aldo came from. So they definitely grow them pretty well out there. I think at some point she'll get up to title contention. I just think she's difficult for opponents. I don't think she's
that
like
division.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think like she's like a sexy fighter in terms of like her skill set, but I just think she has potential to be very effective. So yeah, watch out for her. Main card. Still don't know if he had a pre-existing injury or not, but it definitely was really odd how his leg ballooned, up to the size of, I don't have a good analogy here, but yeah, Jeremy Stephens gets a wide decision over Gilbert Melendez, who couldn't walk. After about 4 minutes of this bout, it was almost it kind of reminded me of when what's his name, Krause fought what's
Varner?
his name? Yeah, Jamie Varner.
He fucked up his ankle.
Yeah, where he fucked up his ankle, but the same kind of idea. He kept every time he got hit, he'd fall down, and okay, and then he'd try to get back up, and he really couldn't do anything. So yeah, kind of reminiscent of that. Wes, I'll start with you. Thoughts on Jeremy Stephens' win over a name opponent?
Yeah, it was a good win. I actually bet Gil here. Gil looked really good from the cut and everything, man. He looked not bad at all going down to 145. But, I mean, I think we just saw that Gil's about done, man. Stephens landed a couple leg kicks. It was really early. It was in the first couple minutes. I thought he must have cracked his leg or something, but I don't think he did. I think it was just some kind of real bad contusion that just ended up swelling up. But yeah, it was still a good win. Gil's always been a tough out, but I mean, he's at the end, man, and we got to see Stephens again because Stephens just his last fight didn't get off whatsoever. So we got to see him against a better top 10 opponent here. But yeah, still a decent win, man. Gil should go on, man, and find something else to do. I think he runs a pretty successful couple gyms in California and stuff. So he should probably go on and focus on that stuff, man.
Nushan, if it is the end of the road for Gilbert Melendez, give us your kind of thoughts on his career. And then beyond that, who would you like to see Jeremy Stephens face next?
That's a pretty damn successful career, if you ask me. I mean, he was Strikeforce champion for like just over 1,000 days or something like that. Like,
seems like forever ago, doesn't it?
It was a long time ago. I mean, the guy is up there. I think he's 37 now or something like that, 38. So that was a while ago, but he had like lots of wars with Josh Thompson.
35 years old, actually.
Oh, okay. That's not too bad, but. Yeah, like, I mean, he was a champion for a really long time. He came to the UFC, and he got his title shot. He got beat, but he's one of the best. I think he's easily in the top 10 best lightweights of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, with
definitely.
just how long his career was, it was pretty good. As for this fight, I think me and Jay have a bit of differing opinion. I was actually pretty impressed with Stevens in this fight. I might be a little more biased because I did party with him a bunch after the fight.
You sound like a certain other podcast host who, if you bet Jeremy Stevens every single fight now moving forward,
shit.
We're gonna have to exile you off for
I know. I got to keep my biases intact, but. Yeah, Jeremy Stevens is a fucking cool dude. But as for this fight, I thought he struck a lot better. Like, he wasn't just looking for the haymaker. He did throw a lot more combinations, and he wasn't going full blast on all of them. I mean, Gill's a tough dude. The guy's been finished once in his entire career, and that was by sub. Like, it's not like he's this guy that he should have bombed on. And we know that Jeremy Stevens' power is kind of overrated by Joe Rogan and everybody else, but
Mighty Joe Rogan.
Poirier, Pretty Tony.
Yeah,
what happened?
Poirier and Tony Pettis fighting in Norfolk.
Yeah, that was already.
Is that already now?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I knew that weeks ago that kind of came out.
I guess they're making it official.
Okay, this is the main event.
Yo,
I'm
that's
not
a
sure.
good question. Yeah, I don't know.
It probably would be.
But yeah, I'm interested to see what Stevens does in his next fight. It'll probably be a bit of a step up, but he's just been in there for so long, and he's still evolving. I mean, he was showing a lot more than what he showed in that previous fight, so I'll be interested to see, and hopefully he can win me some money, because I'm betting on him now.
Well, sorry, I got some bad news for you. He's a fade plant, my friend.
Oh,
he is.
Shit.
Yeah.
Good.
Yep.
Alexa, we need some disagreement on this podcast. So next time he fights, I will we'll hold you to that, Jay.
I'm gonna make you eat rat shit in Calcutta. That's what's gonna happen.
I'm not an idiot, and I don't welch, so I wouldn't bet.
Shots fired.
Next fight up, I think we can all agree on.
Horse Lord.
The myth, the man, the horse lord, Ilir Latifi, destroyed another hype train. Tyson Pedro via takedown. Kind of like what we said, but apparently other people thought otherwise and bet Tyson Pedro up to a favorite. Don't get it, but here we are. Horse Lord wins. New Sean, happy with the Horse Lord?
Of course, happy with the Horse Lord. Also happy with headquarters giving me a little tip on the Horse Lord by decision at plus 11 or plus 740. That was a nice little hit. Yeah, Ilir Latifi is the Horse Lord, but man, does he act like just a bull. He just like lowers his head and just smashes into people. He does not give a fuck, and he's
a thoroughbred.
He is a tough man to fight. That's just not a fun way to fight. And got to give him a high five on his way after winning. And how can you not
bet every time?
I haven't watched that.
Do you have any broken bones?
It's bruised, but I will not wash that hand for sure.
Sean's hog grew 2 inches just by touching Latifi. Just by touching his skin.
That's how the Latifi gravity works.
Hey Wes, you remember when there was people who believed that Tyson Pedro was going to be able to submit Ilir Latifi? Can you explain to me what part of his neck is possible to be subbed? Like, how are they going to get their arms around like a non-existent neck
and
like
choking out a fire
size
hydrant.
14 head? Yeah, I don't know how that works. Explain that to me.
I don't think your jugular runs through your shoulder, you know? Yeah, man, they're like Twitter was pretty much that was the one of the public bets on this card. I saw everybody betting Pedro, and I didn't understand it. I didn't think the guy was even like that good. Then the matchup was just a really bad matchup. I mean, Latifi's the kind of guy you want your money on, man. It's going to take a top dude to take him out.
You got to knock him out.
Yeah, he's going to be a tough fucking out for anybody. The type of dude you want your money on. And I couldn't believe the line went the way it did. So, yeah, I was on it as well. Yeah, I'm with you, man. He's just it's a really tough guy to fight, man. You know what you're going to get out of Latifi, and that's the type of dude you want your money on.
Yes, it was. He is the man.
He is.
Yeah, he definitely is a friend of the show.
Now he's got the elephant pick now, where he's riding the elephant and shit. Like, dude, come on.
I mean, yeah, man. If we're talking about hog analysis. I mean,
yeah, that trunk of the elephant
top 10.
Doesn't even measure up to his trunk. Like, bigger.
Yeah, he's definitely in our top 10 of hog analysis. But then again, I think someone on the upcoming card prove that he is worthy of top 10 hog analysis, but we can talk about that later. Next fight up, really impressive performance. Henry, the Golden Kid Cejudo, just ran through Wilson Hayes. It was
like we said he would. We said he would.
But I think he might even run through him even more than we even thought.
Yeah.
Nushan, how impressed were you with this performance?
That was unbelievable. Like we saw that he took a pretty big leap when he arguably won against Benavidez, but this was just another step up in his striking. He kind of came out in the karate stance, and Wilson Hayes just didn't have a chance, man. That was just beautiful work, just pinpoint accurate with power, and that's a bad dude right there. If DJ wasn't there, he might be the champ right now, because he's just the unreal wrestling, and now he's just tweaking or just making his striking that much better. Henry Cejudo is a very, very good fighter, and that was an awesome performance.
Wes, at this point, do you think that he should get the next title shot, or what do you do with Henry Cejudo at this point?
I said it right after that fuck Borg, like I even tweeted to Dana, fuck Borg, give Cejudo the rematch. Like, I don't know if he could beat DJ yet, but he deserves to get another shot at him. I mean, he's gotten better. We see it. He's improved to the Benavidez fight, which I think we all thought he won that fight. And then we saw here that he looked, even better. Like, Cejudo's the real deal, man. Like, and it's got to be motivated Cejudo, though. Like we saw a couple years ago when he just thought he was the best. I think now he realizes after that DJ loss, he's got to prove that he's the best, and he is, man. I can't wait to see him fight again. That's probably the best fight in the division now. It's hard to even get excited to see if Borg makes weight. I want to see DJ and Henry go at it again. That's the fight.
I like it. That would be a good one. Co-main event, and this fight was not close either.
We told them. We told them on this one too. They didn't want to listen.
Rafael, 2 years. Easy submission over Neil, chicken legs Magny. I think Magny definitely has plateaued for sure. Thoughts on this one, Nushan?
I thought it was going to take a couple leg kicks, but not just one. Just kicked the fuck out of his legs, and he fell down, and just domination on the ground. I don't know. Magny, he's kind of hit his peak there. Dos Anjos is a motherfucker. I mean, he's now that he's moved up weight, he can go balls to the wall, and he has his jiu-jitsu there if needed, and he's got good striking. I'm excited to see if they give him a title shot here, or if they give him a number one contenders fight or whatnot. But RDA is tough to deal with. I like his style of fighting because it is always go forward pretty much.
Yes. Wes, is RDA championship caliber in this weight class?
Yeah, I would believe so. I just think we saw in this fight that there's just absolute levels to this shit, and RDA is just a completely different level fighter than Magny. Magny he's a guy I can say that probably got every single ounce of the talent he has in his body out and more, but this is just a different level of the game when he gets up fighting the top five echelon. But I think he's right there, man. I think he's a guy that could give Woodley some problems. I think being at 72 is better for that brain, better for that chin. I think we've seen that in the past with guys. So I think it's all better for RDA up at 170, and he's an absolute threat for the title.
And the main event, one of those title fights that came down to the judges, and no one knew who was going to get their hand raised. Once the final bell rang, it seems like almost every time this goes to, a title fight goes to decision, we end up saying this. Nunez got the split decision, 48-47 on two, 47-48 on the other. So I'll just ask both of you. We'll keep this one short. How did you score the fight? Nushan first.
I had Nunez 3-2, but obviously I'm a little biased. I know everybody kind of.
Which rounds did you have for Nunez? If you remember,
I had her for sure 1 and for sure 5, and then Shevchenko I gave 4, and I forget if it was second or third that I gave to Nunez, but it was one of those. It's a frustrating fight to watch. I know Nunez has come out and said this was for me to show that I can go 5 rounds, but it's tough. It's tough because Shevchenko wasn't doing anything either, and she wasn't putting a lot of power on her shots. They were soft. So, I mean, I know this isn't the way you're supposed to score fights, but I mean, if one person's coming forward for most of the time and landing close to the same amount of shots and they're harder, I mean, for the most part, you got to give her the fight. And I mean, I know it's another thing that we probably shouldn't do, but I'm one of those people that says if you want the belt, come and take it. Put a stamp on it, not try to eke out a decision and get that belt. Like, I don't know. It's I think Shevchenko is going to be the 125 champ. So I mean, at least she'll get a belt, considering she's like a pretty cool chick and a good fighter. But I don't know. I don't really want to see these two fight again, just because if it turns into this again, that's kind of be a waste of time for everybody.
Wes, score on this bout?
Yeah, I had it the same. I believe I think it was the 2nd and 5. I'm not sure. I was going to watch the fight back, but then I wanted that 30 minutes of my life, so I didn't.
It's a tough one to rewatch.
It was a bad fight, and I'm kind of like on Sean with a lot of it. I get that Shevchenko was countering fairly decent, but man, a lot of that shit was light little low kicks to the shin and shit like that. They both really didn't do much of fucking anything, man. And I don't care how you're supposed to score these fights. If rounds are that close and they're both not landing any real significant stuff, I always am going to score a round for the person moving forward. I just, that matters to me. Aggression, and that is you're not, I don't know, you're not supposed to score that, but it's hard to separate a round when they're both about the same. So to me, that just does it for me. And I think that's why I was giving Nunez those rounds that absolutely could have went either way. there's so many people that holler robberies now to where I don't even think we know what I don't even think we know what a robbery is anymore because everything's a robbery now. It's like, that's not a robbery. Like, either which way, that fight wasn't a robbery. You could have gave 3 of those rounds to Shevchenko, and I wouldn't have bitched about it. I had money on Nunez and didn't know if I won or not. Now, some of the judges' scorecards were literally shit because they were scoring
Tony Weeks is terrible.
I mean, there's all kinds of them that are terrible. But yeah, Weeks is one of the worst. But there's some really bad judges in the sport. And it's not, you can't say it was Edmonton's fault because those judges are taken everywhere with the UFC. So it's the UFC's fault that those judges are so goddamn bad. But yeah, that fight could have been 3-2 either which way. I just had a problem with some of the rounds were completely scored wrong. They should have been the opposite. But yeah, nobody wants to see that fight again. Never again. And we'll say one other thing. It's getting to the point where, like we talked earlier off the show with these belts, that these champs, man, they make so little, and then with that belt, like Nunez's girlfriend said, she can pull about $1 million a year with that belt because she gets points, she gets better sponsors, she gets better Reebok money. Take that belt away, and she's making not even half that. So you're going to have these fights to where these fighters don't want to lay it out there. They don't want to go all out and knock people out. It's really bad, and it makes for boring ass title fights like this. And hopefully this isn't the norm going forward. If they don't pay fighters better, I fear that it might be.
Well, a few thoughts. I'll first start with Tony Weeks, I think. Tony Weeks scored round 4 for Nunez and round 5 for Shevchenko.
Like, did he screw that up? Like, that's flipped.
That's ass backwards.
That's so easy.
Those are the two clearest rounds of the fight, in my opinion. It's just, at some point, there really needs to be some sort of, it's like the driver's test, right? You passed it once, doesn't mean that you're like a good driver for the next 60 years of your life. Maybe you should be retested every so often to prove you can judge fights, to a certain basic level, because it not only does it affect people's records, it affects the amount of money these fighters are getting, because obviously 98% of fighters have a win bonus in the UFC. So judging fights correctly affects how much money these athletes are bringing home. It's a real issue, and at some point it needs to be addressed. That there needs to be some level of standard, and if you're outside of the norm and you're not judging it the way that the criteria is being expressed, that ultimately you're no longer capable of doing that, because these guys, last time I heard, are making somewhere between $1,000 and $1,500 per fight card for a UFC fight card. They're getting a decent amount of money to do this.
Money.
They don't have to judge every fight on the card. They only judge what?
2, 3, maybe.
Well, maybe a little more. I don't know.
When you have fighters,
Weeks only did 2 that night.
It's unbelievable. You make a lot of money and you're doing it completely incorrectly. It's unacceptable. Something needs to change. And I think my idea of of being retested, or if you have so many outliers compared to what the average is, you could even have like a peer evaluation where you pay these guys, you take a sample, people, judges that are sitting at home or whatever they are, they judge a card kind of like an MMA decisions kind of a thing, so you can kind of develop a consensus of what how the majority are scoring it. And then if somebody is so far outside of the norm, they're obviously not doing it right, and they're no longer given these assignments. That's the way I see it. In terms of my grading of the fight card, I had Nunez winning rounds 1 and 5, and I had Shevchenko winning 2, 3, and 4. I thought she did enough to be the winner. The third round was the closest, and it was very hard to kind of really kind of pull that round away. So I could easily see that round for Nunez, and quite frankly, that's why I haven't really complained a lot about the decision. I knew it was going to be a split decision. It felt like a split decision, and it was a split decision. So that's kind of what you get. You don't land anything decisive on either side. You're going to get that kind of score, and you really don't have much room to complain. That's really it for this bout. Who does Nunez fight next? I know there's some talk about Kat Zingano. I don't get it. I mean, she hasn't fought forever. Pennington, I guess, makes a little more sense. But I guess you can make the case that there really is no rightful number one contender at this point. So unless she wants to grow some balls and face Cyborg, that would be really exciting. Otherwise, like, you have no room to talk.
They should really just put all this shit back in Invicta.
I mean, maybe the Holly Holm thing. I mean, I don't know. Either way, I mean, honestly, I'd really like to see this girl face Cyborg, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah,
not a chance.
I don't.
Nah,
This conversation came out about money. She wants no part of that, but I think you guys, that would be a pretty compelling fight. I think.
Yeah, it'd be fun.
Because there's nothing boring about Chris Cyborg. Nothing.
I think Cyborg would murder her, though. Like, she'd murder all them chicks, and those girls ain't putting their fucking career and health on the line to get beat up by Cyborg. It just ain't gonna happen. I respect Home. Like, she's kind of calling her out a little bit. I kind of respect that. But they should really have kept all this shit in Invicta. It's just, I can't believe they're starting another division. That is just insane to me, man. It's like, it's bad product. It's really bad product, man.
They're creating another division, yet Dana gets pissed and says they won't make like a 165 in the guys and 175 in the guys, and you could, like, splitting up 70. Like, which one do you think is better?
Product.
Yeah.
It could improve your product so much because you wouldn't have guys killing themselves to make weight and shit. Like, you'd improve your product.
Good chance.
And another belt.
You don't need to make it every division, but like there's so many fighters in like those couple,
that is
one.
Yeah,
that would be add one.
And you could get something in between 205 and 265, I think.
Well, that weight class is too shitty to break up.
Yeah, that's the only thing. Yeah, that it's just it's fucking horrible. But yeah, you need something in between there because that's where you have a lot of fighters. But it's, there is a lot of in between guys. But there's so many fighters at that kind of weight class, kind of the average type body, Well,
look at the guys who would probably fit like a 163 pound division. I mean, Habib is obviously the natural thought process there, right? Nate Diaz seems to be like a guy who would be there. Probably Donald Cerrone, I imagine, would probably fit there naturally. Maybe even, I don't know about Dos Anjos, but I guess that's plausible. I'm trying to think. Maybe even Robbie Lawler.
Yeah. And you're talking like top guys now.
Absolutely.
And then you have a lot of second level guys in those divisions. Sure. It's a well filled out, few divisions right there. That's where most of your talent is,
And you get lots of fresh matchups too, right?
Yeah. Yep. Oh, it's doing something like that would be leaps and bounds better than adding a fucking another women's.
And you could have these kind of jump up and down too, hypothetically. It would definitely open things up more, and you have more consistent.
They need fresh bodies, is what they need.
You could have more, and you could have more, just more fight setup, I think, potentially, or just, with the more divisions there are, like in the quality weight classes where there's depth of talent, you could fill up your fight cards a lot, kind of a lot easier, I think. That's all. I think that would be a good place. And, I guess you could fit one more in, maybe even, I don't know, maybe between feather and lightweight too. I mean, I don't know. I'm not even sure it's necessary. I would probably just add one, or just that one weight class and kind of see how it goes. I mean, I guess it comes down to how many divisions do you ultimately really need. And since they seem so dead set on these female divisions, I mean, I honestly wouldn't hate if they did female only cards and just left it at that and did so many per year. But it doesn't look like that's the route they're going. They want to just mix them in to the regular cards. Or just kind of co-brand Invicta as its own. Because they've obviously pillaged Invicta because their fight cards are practically unwatchable at this point.
That's all they're doing with adding another division too. Is just pretty much taking their top talent. Is all they're doing.
And taking some randoms that show up in Europe and Brazil. And,
yep.
Yeah.
Oh, and they had the one chick that showed up from Armenia or whatever on the Tough last week that was supposed to be one of their, knockout arts and shit, and she just got literally mauled. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's no talent out there, man. There's just not. It's going to be like the other divisions. There's going to be 5 or 6 decent fighters, and they're going to rotate them motherfuckers.
Yep.
It's not good.
Yeah, that's what it looks like for sure. But we shall see. That's it for UFC 215. I guess we'll quickly jump up to this week's card in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Hey. Woo! Hey, home of the home of the sandwich, literally. If you want to get if you want to get a heart attack, it's a good place to get a sandwich. I'll leave it at
that. Watch your wife if she's drinking in a Pittsburgh bar. Especially
hide your kids, hide your wife.
Especially if old Benny's around. You better watch your wife in the bathroom.
They are. I forget if they're home on Sunday. Might want to look into that before you head out. They were home last week, so you might get a reprieve, and he might be on the road. Yeah. Anyway,
no hate mail from our 2 followers in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, please. Anyway, Fight Pass card. There's only one fight on Fight Pass this week, so I guess it automatically becomes the Fight Pass headliner. But it seems like they haven't really focused on this Fight Pass headliner thing. When Eric Winter was there, they seemed to be putting a lot more media attention into that concept, but now not really. But the fight's pretty good. I think it's one of the better opening fights of a fight card in a while. One of my favorite jiu-jitsu specialists and one of the best in the sport, Gilbert Burns, taking on another Canadian hopeful, right, Sean? Jason Sago?
Yeah.
Thoughts on what?
He's another one of these guys that I'm good on him, yeah. I thought this fight was kind of aligned more correctly with the opener, with Gilbert Burns around like minus 180 or so, maybe a little bit shorter than that, but money's come in on Jason Sago. This is going to be a tough fight for Sago. I mean, he's mostly a jiu-jitsu guy, and he's going against like a world-class jiu-jitsu guy. So likely he's just going to have to outstrike Gilbert without going to the ground with him. Gilbert, he's fought a lot of tough guys. I know that first fight against Alex Howboy. He almost lost, but I mean, in hindsight, Howboy's got some skills, and I mean, he lost to Magomedov, he beat Sajewski, he lost to Prazeres. Like, he's had a pretty tough go in the UFC. Whereas Jason Sago, he's kind of, I mean, he's losing to okay guys too, but his wins are definitely not amazing. I kind of give the edge to Gilbert Burns here. I think he can do all right in the striking and get Sago to the ground and either catch a sub or do enough to keep it on the ground. And with the number where it is, I'm going to have to take a little bit of a stab at Gilbert Burns at minus 130.
Okay. He likes Gilbert Burns. Wes, do you like Gilbert Burns as well?
Yeah, I actually do. I kind of see this fight almost playing out on the feet, though, a lot. I could see Burns kind of keeping this up, and I think he's a little bit better striker. Now, if this does hit the ground, which, if Sago has his way, I think he would want to get it down and get on top. But, man, I mean, Gilbert Burns is, defensive wrestling isn't horrible or anything. Something tells me this plays out on the feet, and I just see Burns kind of keeping him at distance, piecing him up a little bit for 3 rounds. Could absolutely hit the mat. And if it does, if it's Burns getting a takedown, I think Sago's in trouble, like a lot of trouble. I like Burns here. I didn't get the line movement. It almost feels like a trap to me. I think Burns is just a better guy here in every facet. So I will be taking a shot on Burns here.
My grades are C- for both guys. Gilbert Burns is a guy that I had really high expectations for when he entered the UFC. Another guy that was kind of like a Vitor Belfort protege. And, with an extremely impressive submission background. You could argue he's top 3, top 5 in the sport in terms of, or at least in the UFC, maybe even the sport, in terms of just submission grappling ability. He's a world champion in jiu-jitsu. And his striking wasn't terrible, and he's a decent athlete, but it just hasn't translated as well as it should in the sport. And, he's facing a guy here that, maybe a little bit underrated, honestly. Pretty good motor, decent enough grappling game. It pushes the pace, which makes this interesting because Burns can slow down a bit. But you have to think that, in a grinding kind of a fight, like Burns could have success if this fight goes to the ground too. And I think he is a more talented striker overall. So I do lean Burns in this bout, but I wouldn't be surprised if he slows down and, it just doesn't find the sub from the bottom. Because from the top, he's super dangerous. From the bottom, I think Sago is really good at control and just kind of, getting points in that regard. So I wouldn't be shocked if Sago just kind of wears down Burns and gets a decision. But I do lean Burns overall, and I think he is definitely the more likely to finish. Next bout up on the card, and a really interesting bout, and I think one that, has this, could really be one of the most entertaining bouts of the night. Felipe Arantes, another Brazilian, taking on, one guy I really like, Luke Sanders, Nushan. What do you think of this one?
I think Luke Sanders should win. Main key word there is should. He had
shoulda, coulda.
Yeah, he had a lot of hype coming into the Yuri Alcantara fight, and early on he looked like it was it was coming through, and he was smashing Yuri, but he made a mistake and got his knee jacked up. I kind of worry about that. I don't know if that's a thing that could happen with a wrestler that becomes a thing, and Arantes does have a bunch of submissions on his record. But he should tool up Arantes. His wrestling and his striking has looked really, really good. It's just we'll be interested to see how he comes back after that kind of choke job of a loss against Alcantara. I'll pick him, but no bet at -220.
Wes, thoughts on this one? You like Luke Sanders as well?
Yeah, actually, he should smash here. He really should. He looked great against Yuri, man, and it's not every day you're going to get caught in a leg lock like that. I can't see Arantes catching him in something like that. I mean, Sanders pretty much controlled, and Yuri didn't get close to anything, but until he caught that, which is, you don't want to call it luck, but you don't get caught in too many leg locks at this level. I can't see Arantes catching him with something like that. But when you see something like that happen, it's hard to lay -220 on a guy in his very next fight. So pick is going to be Sanders, but I can't bet him in this spot.
I got Arantes a C, Luke Sanders C+. I do think pretty highly of Luke Sanders. I think he's a pretty well-rounded fighter. He was easily winning that fight against Alcantara, then really kind of a stunning submission. Arantes doesn't have that kind of submission skill set in his repertoire. I think he's, if he's going to have to strike with Sanders, and I think Sanders is going to hurt him on the feet. There's a lot of holes in Arantes' striking game, and I think Luke Sanders is going to exploit it. Look for Luke Sanders to win this bout, and I think it'll be pretty convincing over the Brazilian coming up to good old Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for the match. So Luke Sanders wins. I'm even going to look at a finishing prop, probably a TKO. I'm going to look at it. I haven't really looked at it in too much detail, but that's something I'm going to be eyeing closer to fight day.
Inside is +230, so TKO should be Nice little price.
Nice.
That is, I like that. Definitely need to look at it a little more. Maybe the inside is a little safer, but we'll talk about that later in the week. Next bout up. Don't know why this is so low on the fight card, given that it's two top 15 middleweights, but here we are. Krzysztof Jotko, Mr. Poland, taking on maybe the most, well, I'm not going to say the most hyped tough fighter of all time, Felipe Nover. Him and Felipe Nover, I would say, are 1 and 2, or 1A and 1B. But yeah, Uriah Hall. Nushan, is this going to be a classic Uriah Hall fight? Tell me it's not.
Who knows? He's kind of a Jekyll and Hyde. Nobody knows really what kind of fight we're going to get into. I grabbed the over 2.5 at the opener. It was minus 150, which I thought was pretty low considering I kind of give a decent edge to Jotko to win this fight, and I don't really see him finishing Hall. It's kind of moved to about minus 230 now, so that's a little more reasonable. Jotko is a tough dude. He just grinds. That's what he does. And Uriah Hall really doesn't like that. I know he's been finished in the last 2 fights, but the last 3 guys that Uriah Hall has fought is Robert Whittaker, Derek Brunson, and Gegard Mousasi. Like that's pretty fucked up. He's just it's a tough fighter to watch because you don't know. He just doesn't pull the trigger. I really expect Jotko to grind him into the fence and probably maybe get him down and lay on him a bunch. So I don't think this is going to be a very exciting fight, but hopefully my over 2.5 catches. I'll pick Jotko, but I won't bet him just because you never know with Hall.
Yeah, that's fair. Wes, give me your thoughts on this one. Tell me it's more interesting than Nushan says.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think Jotko wins here, but it's another case to where it's hard to lay 220 against a guy like Uriah Hall. You could be eating, rat shit in Calcutta when you go that route. Yeah, Jotko, he should grind here. That's his game. His last fight, he just ran into a better grinder than him, and that's what happened. I don't think Hall's that guy. But, man, Hall is still – he is pretty explosive, man. He is pretty athletic. He could land that shot, man. I would not be surprised. But if Jotko can keep this close and up against the cage and stuff, I can see him getting a decision here. I think Sean got a really good bet on that over at the price he got. That's probably the best angle on this fight. I'll pick Jotko, but probably no bet for me on this fight.
I believe we have a newcomer.
What? Who?
Pardon?
Hey,
Who did that? Are you guys actually talking about like a half decent fight when I log in too?
it's just my young hoe.
Well, yeah, that's because this fight is out of order. Because after this, we got Daniel Swallows versus Anthony fucking Hamilton.
Oh, can't wait! Can't wait.
Who
thought
that on a 4-fight television preliminary card that the second fight should be this fight when it's the best fight on the preliminary card? Pretty terrible. I don't know what they're doing.
They got to keep us awake between the shit fights and the main card.
Okay. All right, Brad.
This one might not necessarily keep us awake.
I know, that's what I was saying too.
Jotko is just going to get that grind on, but I think he's a very, very likely winner. We've seen that he can take a shot. After Uriah Hall's been stopped a couple times now, he's going to be even more tentative than he already was. So I just think this is Jotko putting pressure on, Hall having absolutely no volume at all. And Jotko, maybe he can put it on him a little bit towards the second, third round, get a finish. But Jotko decision. I've actually got him in a parlay.
Oh, shit.
Sean got a really nice number on the over. That was really
what'd you get for the over?
Minus 150.
Nice. Yeah. Not bad at all.
Yeah, I got Uriah Hall C+, Jotko B-. Uriah Hall, he's basically if he lands a home run or he's going to falter long term. He really struggles with guys who push the pace and kind of make the fight ugly. That's what Jocko does, and that's who he is. He's not a sexy fighter, but he's effective. He grinds. He puts out a pretty high volume, and he wears out his opponents. That's what he's going to do against Hall here. I expect Jocko to win by decision. I looked at that prop. It's minus 115. That's too low for me because I could also see like a late takedown and kind of elbowing him to oblivion too. That wouldn't be a shock. I need plus 125 to play the decision. I don't see it getting there, but if it does, that's in range. Next fight up, Nushan mentioned it. Man, it's terrible. Like, not even an enthusiasm.
It doesn't even. Oh man.
Fuck are we doing here? I'm not wasting any more time.
That's a Bradley special. He gets the first dibs at this.
Anthony Hamilton, Daniel Spitz. I'll pass it now to the senior member of our crew in our panel. Bradford, tell me what you're going to do here. I hope it's worth it.
You know what? I'm probably going to end up playing it. I have to. But man, Anthony Hamilton might knock himself out in this fight. Like, this guy is, for being a massive 260 whatever pound man, I don't know how any of that weight didn't end up in his jaw, because this man cannot take a punch at all. Got knocked out by a 206 pound Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt who's never thrown a punch in his fucking life before.
Hey, we had money on him.
I know.
Oh, fuck, we did.
What's wrong with us? Oh, man. But that, yeah. You know what? I hope for the sake of the over that, Spitz hits as softly as it seemed like he hit in his UFC debut. And Spitz looks like a guy that can take some shots to the face, If you know what I'm saying, Sean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah? Yeah. So I'm going to end up playing the over, but you can't pick a side here. I mean, this is sub Dana White Tuesday Night Contender Series, sub LFA heavyweight garbage.
This ain't even a regional MMA dog.
Not even close.
Nushan.
Daniel Swallows lose the fight to Mark Godbeer by decision. By decision! Oh my god. And he's fighting fucking Anthony Hamilton, who got knocked out by the tuna man. I know usually it's the women's fights that you go for a drink, but this is definitely the one to go for a drink on the prelims for sure.
Wes.
I mean, this fucking guy went to a decision with fucking Cabbage like 2 years ago. Like what the fuck, man? Yeah, I guess Hamilton, but I'm gonna be on fatties as well. I'll be small, just small.
Fucking Cabbage.
I got
you believe that? Ain't heard that name in like forever.
Anthony Hamilton a D-. I got Daniel Spitz an F- because he is terrible. He is. I gotta be looking at my heavyweight because I have more Fs. All right, and his category we got Christian Colombo. Georges Daniel, and Chris De La Roca. We are talking about the bottom of the barrel. We're talking about, when you've had when you have a hangover, you keep drinking out of that bottle of water, and the very, very bottom, what's left, that shit that you don't want to drink, the bottom,
just all the backwash.
These guys are.
There's probably some cigarette butts in there too.
It's terrible. You don't want that. You don't want to tell anybody you had that, but you're so thirsty you might have already drank that. It's terrible. And Daniel Spitz is terrible. He's really fucking terrible. I mean, he lost to Godbeer by decision and got dominated in that bout. And Godbeer's an F. But Anthony Hamilton was knocked out by a light heavyweight, so it's there's no winning in this bout. But Anthony Hamilton's so much more athletic, has a lot more experience, actually has some decent wins on his resume. He really should win this bout and do so convincingly, but it's Anthony Hamilton. You can't trust him. So, yeah. I mean, this is, even for Tout Master, you're like, I don't want to think about it. This is like the fight where you're like, I hope I did the right thing. And
can we pick the over instead of a side for Tout Master? Is that allowed?
Oh, fuck. I don't want to go there. I mean, it's ugly. I mean, it can end in 25 seconds or it ends in 15 minutes. I mean,
if it doesn't end in 25 seconds, it's going to take 15 minutes.
Yep.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. Let's move on from that atrocity. Prelim headliner. I think there's going to be some dissension on this one. We got Canadian superstar Olivier Aubin-Mercier, versus Tony Living La Vida Martin. Yes, let's do it up. Bradford, what do you got for me?
This is actually a pretty good fight. Both guys are really, really solid grapplers. Both guys are developing their striking. They're light heavyweights, so pretty decent athletes.
Heavyweights.
Or lightweights, sorry, lightweights.
Well, maybe
goddamn, they're on that good Canadian John Jones medicine.
They're on that like grade 99 horse meat.
Exactly. But this should be a pretty good fight. I think that everyone is kind of rightly giving Martin the early edge because I still don't think... Has he lost the first round in the UFC yet?
Has he lost
even when he was fighting...
Round?
What was that?
Has he lost in the first round?
No, has he lost a first round?
Because
I know that he even beat Dariush in the first round. He beat Magomedov in the first round in those fights.
Santos.
Yeah, so I think he's going to take the first round here. And then he seems to be getting his cardio in order, but man, he hasn't been against a guy that can put him in a bad spot in the late rounds in a little while. So Olivier Aubin-Mercier is definitely that guy because he can find a whole lot of different ways to get on your back. And I think Martin is the type of guy that once he gets a little bit tired, he's got a bit of quit in him. So I could certainly see him jumping out to an early lead in this fight, but then getting put in a bad spot, and maybe Mercier is able to lock up a rear naked choke and finish him off round 2 or round 3. So really tough to bet on that happening. Jay, I know you're probably going to talk about the live betting possibilities, but I might even look pre-fight at the round 2, round 3 type of props, or Mercier by sub.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's an interesting angle. New Sean.
Yeah, this is it's a fairly close fight. This is another one just like Burns, where I thought the opener was a little bit closer to what I think the fight is. I guess not at minus 175, maybe closer to minus 160 or something. But now that Ohm is close to even money, minus 120, I'm tempted to take just a tiny stab at him, and then like Brad said, might be a good option to just wait until round 1, because Tony Martin really likes to win round 1, and then Ohm might be able to take over from there, and we might get an okay plus number there. Ohm's kind of fucked me a couple times on overs, so I'm not even touching that. And like Brad said, Tony Martin does quit sometimes, so that's just a no-go for me. So I think I'm just going to play Ohm small to begin with, and then look to bet him live after the first if he's a decent-sized dog.
Wes, thoughts here?
Yeah, I don't think I could articulate it any better than Brad did, honestly. It's a close fight. I know we talked earlier today about Tony Martin in the first round, and maybe looking live after the first, you probably get a better number on Ohm. But I'm just not totally convinced that Tony Martin is gonna win this first round. I like what I've seen out of Ohm lately. I think he's improving. He's a really, really good fighter on the mat now. And I think if he does get out of that first round, which I think he will, Tony Martin's going to be in a little bit of trouble. So I bet Ohm at minus 120 small. I'll absolutely look live if Martin does win that first. And I think Brad's on the right track looking at that round 2 and round 3 prop off top, so you don't really have to worry about that. But yeah, I like Ohm here. I'm a little bit surprised at the line, but we've seen how Twitter's been lately on everybody liking one guy at a little bit of plus money here lately. So it seems like Tony Martin is one of those guys this week.
Yeah, this is a decent fight on paper. I got both guys C minus. I actually have Tony Martin a C, Ohm C minus. So Martin a little higher of a grade. I think his level of competition has actually been way better than Ohm's in the UFC. The size advantage, I think people will be surprised that Ohm's a 3 inches taller, or rather Martin's 3 inches taller, 3-inch reach advantage. And I definitely think he's a way better striker. He's definitely shown improvements in his recent fights. He hits harder than Ohm. Ohm is a lot more stiff in his striking. And Martin, as Brad said, he hasn't lost a first round yet in the UFC. So that really comes into play for me. I'm not sure, like the Ohm angle. If you're looking at it, I kind of agree with Brad there that if Martin tires, he didn't tire much in his last bout, but if he's forced into a grappling exchanges, it could tire late, and those like round 2, round 3 props are intriguing. But I definitely like Martin to win round 1, and then like you kind of have to see what happens. I mean, if he's able to stop takedowns from Ohm, you have to imagine Ohm's going to try a few. Tony Martin could definitely be in trouble there, but in a standing exchange, I definitely prefer Tony Martin. I think he's a significantly better striker than Ohm, and Martin's definitely as a possibility to finish early in this fight. So I mean, I do favor Martin a bit, but I think there is a potential for an Ohm late win, and that's if the line is right live. I think that's the way you look. So I'd look Martin early, Ohm late. Television card coming up. We got another heavyweight bout. We got the first debutant on the card. I might do a Lance here and pronounce this wrong, but Zhu Anyanwu facing everybody's favorite boxer, Justin Ledet. Brad, boxing going to beat MMA again?
I think it is. I've seen some people saying that Anyanwu is tough, and obviously he's got some heavy hands. If you saw that he knocked out a pretty tough guy in his Dana White Tuesday night fight, but there's just a big skill difference in this one. And in Ledet, you've got a guy that doesn't really tire. He's actually shown a bit of a submission game. He can take a couple shots. We saw him eat some shots in the Sherman fight. So I think that he's got a lot of things going in this way for him. And then you've got Anyanwu, who's coming in on 10 days notice maybe?
Not even.
He came in for that Ukrainian guy, Sosnovsky. Yeah. So I think that it's just going to be a whole lot of Ledet jabbing, and waiting until Anyanwu gets tired. Then he's going to open up a little bit more. And not necessarily sure this one ends up on the ground. I could see just a pretty clear decision for Ledet, but I'm kind of surprised that the over 1.5 is only minus 150 because Ledet's not a huge puncher, and it does seem like Anyanwu can take a little bit. So I like the fatties again here.
No surprise there.
Obviously not.
Well, one guy's not a fatty.
Jay.
They're all fatties.
Don't fuck with it. Don't fuck with it.
They're all fatties.
All right, new Sean. Boxer man?
Yeah, I mean, it's heavyweight, so shit can happen, but Ledette should beat anywho.
That's a pretty
Late notice, and Ledette's just far more skilled, the younger fighter, and yeah, just more ways to win. He might be able to get him down and choke him out. He might be able to drop him and choke him out, or he could win a decision. Frankly, I don't give a damn.
West.
Yeah, Ledette wins. I think he might get a finish though.
That's it?
That's it. Let's go.
I like it. Okay, I got Anyanwu a D-, Ledette a D. Anyanwu really has a heavy right hand, and he really looks for it, and he doesn't strike in combination at all. Ledette's literally the exact opposite. He uses both. He uses both hands. He strikes at volume and in combination. I mean, he's shown to have a pretty good chin thus far, and his UFC career hasn't been really phased much by at all. So I think he just wins this like going away on volume. I think he's going to outstrike Anyanwu like 4-1 in this bout, and cruise. I think it's a pretty easy fight for him. I mean, Anyanwu, probably has a decent chin in his own right, but he is getting old. I don't think it's an early stoppage by Ledette, but I could definitely see a late one. Either way, he wins. So, yeah. Next fight up on this card, and this could be one-way traffic.
Could be.
Another jiu-jitsu specialist, Sergio Moraes, facing the runaway train, the Nigerian nightmare, Kamaru Usman. Brad, how good is this guy, and how off is this line?
At least 12 inches.
This guy is very, very good. I think we're all at that stage now. I think it was maybe a year ago on this podcast. It was like just recently after Usman and Covington fought around the same time. And we said, these are two future title contenders. And their games are starting to differentiate a little bit. Usman is definitely smoother with his striking than Covington, and just mixes things up a little bit better overall. And man, this is kind of a shitty matchup because Sergio Moraes seems like the nicest guy ever.
He smiles a lot.
He does smile a lot, but he's not going to be smiling after about 30 seconds of this fight because he is going to get it put on him in this one. I'm kind of shocked that with the way Usman's game has been developing and the way that he is just beating the shit out of people, that he's still plus 2 something to finish a 37-year-old jiu-jitsu guy who's really got no way to win this fight.
Does nobody want to face him? Is that what this is?
I guess not. But, man, that number's kind of crazy to me. I think that Usman's going to put it on him. I don't think he's going to bother going for takedowns, and I think he's going to put Sergio Moraes away in this one. I think it's pretty clear that that's what's going to happen. And that is me blowing my wad for the night. I got to get out of here.
It was short but sweet, Bradley.
That's what my wife says.
We enjoyed it.
That's
I think
not
we enjoyed
what his wife says.
Have a good one, guys.
Brad. Sergio Moraes hasn't lost in 7 UFC fights and is a minus 700 or plus 500 underdog, and he probably should be even higher than that. Like Brad said, he doesn't have many good ways to win. I mean, I guess he could catch Usman maybe on the ground, but I don't see that happening. I think Usman just tools him on the feet. Usman's hands and his kicks have just been getting better and better every fight. And I know he doesn't have many finishes. He's got like 4 straight decisions, but I really think he gets Sergio Moraes out of here. Moraes has been dropped in a couple fights lately. I'm going to sprinkle on that and plus 217, and I'm also going to take Kamaru when the points handicap comes out at minus 3.5. It'll probably be around minus 300, but it's still worth it. Parlay that shit.
All right, Wes. So you gonna tell me something different?
I mean, I'd be a fool, right? I mean,
Probably.
We've talked on this show. Brad nailed it. We've talked about Usman on the show. He's legit, man. He's one of the I think the better fighters to come along in the past few years. He's going to have to get fight some better guys after this fight, to get that name bigger. But I just don't see how Moraes wins this fight, man. He's in a bad spot. I think this is going to be a really bad beatdown. I have Usman in so many different things. I'm waiting on the points handicap. Already have him inside the distance. Yeah, man, I'm a believer. I'm an absolute believer in Usman. I know he hasn't gotten a ton of finishes, but I mean, Warley, I don't see how that dude didn't die in the cage. So that should have been a finish right there. I mean, he's beating the fuck out of some guys. So yeah, Usman all day here, man. And I think after this fight, he's going to fight a pretty big name, and it's going to be really close to him getting a title shot here soon because he's right there, man. That guy's really fucking good.
Do you know that Usman's takedown defense 0% in the UFC?
He's
I'm gonna find out
once or what?
I'm gonna look it up.
Or is
I think it's because no one's attempted a takedown.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
he's too busy smashing fools or taking them down.
His striking is like improved leaps and bounds. Like Brad said, that's where he separated himself from Covington. Covington still is relying on his wrestling and is still kind of robotic in a stand-up. Usman is just like looks way different. The dude's for real.
Usman's secured 20 takedowns so far in his UFC career. He's fought 5 times in the organization.
That's nuts, man.
And he hasn't even attempted that many in his last. He only attempted one against Warley Alves and took him down, and Hulk smashed him from there. Because he realizes that some guys are a little dangerous in certain situations, and there's really no need to put yourself at risk. And that's why this fight is going to be the way it is, and that's why the line is the way it is. I got Moraes a C-, Usman a B+ at this point, buddying up to A-, pretty soon. He's one of the best fighters in this division, continues to be underrated. I think he's ranked currently 12th in the welterweight division, but in reality, I got him around 5, if not higher. He's just athletically superior to most guys in this weight class. His striking has gotten a lot better. He easily outstruck Warley. He easily outstruck Sean Strickland, who are 2 of the better strikers in this division. He outstruck Leon Edwards 48-26 overall. That included 6 takedowns, so take that for what it is. And that's another guy that's been on kind of the up in this weight class. Moraes is going to be undersized in this bout. He's obviously got his best chance if this fight goes to the ground. Usman hasn't even been hurt in a fight. There's no reason for him to take this fight down. He's better on the feet than Moraes. He's going to outstrike him on the feet, and he's going to win. Whether that's by stoppage or by decision, I guess we'll see. But he's gonna roll here. I think few fighters want to face Usman. That's why he's not getting these high-profile matchups. But at some point, they're going to just force it, and he's going to be put into a main event or co-main event kind of situation against top-tier talent, and they're going to, those guys are going to be forced to face him.
You better believe there's some guys that have ducked Usman. He wouldn't be fighting fucking Moraes if some guys hadn't ducked him.
I think there's a handful of guys that have already ducked him.
Yep.
Yeah. You got to think that maybe that Covington fight is like a collision course waiting.
It is. It's going to be a number 1.
If they want to do it that way, I don't know if that's what they're going to do, but it just seems like that's eventually going to happen, and that's where things probably get interesting. But until then, just keep putting your money there. I mean, I think it's a pretty clear winner. Next fight up, another mismatch in my opinion. We got former NCAA champion wrestler and undefeated lightweight Grigor Gillespie facing someone called Jason Gonzalez, who barely has a completed Twitter page, or rather a Wikipedia page. So, Nushan, I'll let you start here.
Yeah, I think this is more one-way traffic. The only thing I a little bit hesitant of Gillespie is that he did knock Andrew Holbrook the fuck out in 21 seconds last fight. So hopefully he doesn't fall in love too much with his striking and get himself in a firefight or something like that. But he has previous knockouts in the first round, so I don't think that's too much to worry about. But Jason Gonzalez is just overmatched here. He's gonna get tossed around and he's gonna get punched a lot. I think this is a nice step up for Gillespie. It's nothing too crazy, but he's gonna put a hurting on Jason Gonzalez.
Yeah, Wes, one-way traffic.
Yeah, Gonzalez isn't that good. I mean, he had an okay win last time out, but I mean, it's JC Contrell. Caught a submission, so Gregor's gonna smash here. I'm like Sean said though, I don't want to see him get too, in love with his striking because he's just an absolute monster on the mat. But this isn't the guy that's gonna get him in trouble, even if he does. So Gregor smash.
I got Jason Gonzalez a D, Gillespie a B minus. He's not the biggest lightweight, and I think maybe down the line, I mean, he's 5'9", 71-inch reach, so decent size, but he's not huge for this weight class. He's actually undersized in this bout, 3-inch reach, 5 inches shorter than Jason Gonzalez, but that really doesn't matter much when Gonzalez is going to be laying flat on his back and dealing with ground and pound. That's what's going to happen here. This isn't the guy that's going to be able to challenge Gillespie and defend those takedown attempts. It just isn't. The dude averages nearly 5 takedowns per 15 minutes in the octagon. You can see what kind of talent he has. There's very few Division I NCAA wrestling champions that have ever been in the UFC, and all of them, I believe, except for Jared Rochal, have had major success in the organization. I expect Gillespie to do so. He's going to, even at lightweight, I expect him to pop into the top 15, maybe even top 10. Within the next couple of years, really no reason not to. The skill's there. He's going to run through Gonzalez, takedown city, ground and pound, probably a finish, pretty early in this bout even. This is another showcase bout, and hopefully he gets a real competition next time. Moving up, this should be fun. We got Hector no longer on the Lombard against Anthony Smith. New Sean, how fun is this going to be?
This is going to be fun as long as it lasts. These guys are very violent people, and I think Anthony Smith is going to be the one to put out Hector Lombard. I grabbed Anthony Smith at the opener at plus 120. Is that what it was? Yeah.
Yep.
And nothing too crazy, but it's more of a fade. Like I like Anthony Smith. He had a really good win against Andrew Sanchez, but if I can fade a guy that's lost 3 in a row and took an insane amount of damage in 2 of those 3 fights and is 39 years old and is way smaller and shorter or shorter reach and all that against a young guy who's kind of putting it together in his career, I got to take that at plus money. There is always that shot that Hector has, but I think Anthony Smith's chin is enough and his offense is enough to get Hector out of there fairly early.
Wes, Anthony Smith fan?
Yeah, I mean, I never really been, the biggest fan of his. I lost a little money on him against Faden fucking Caesar back in a couple years ago, and then he beat Sanchez, man, and I'm actually pretty high on Sanchez, man. I watched him on Tough and thought he could be pretty decent. I think that was a really good win. I would be looking at Smith in this fight at those plus odds anyway, but man, looking at Hector now, I mean, he's Cuban, so he's at least 5 years older than the 39 that's listed.
You see when the last time he fought was? When last time he won, I mean.
Against Josh Berkman?
You remember when that was?
That was a long time ago.
January 2015.
And then his last fight, you lose to, a completely washed Johnny Hendricks.
Made him look good.
Yeah, KO'd by Hendo. You got KO'd by Neil fucking Magny. Hector is a goddamn make tag washing machine at this point. He's done, dude. You talking about the USADA hitting a guy? He is done without that juice, man. That's why you look at guys like Bones and look at a guy like Hector Lombard, and you tell me that it means the same thing. You know, you can see what guys that are really good are. Hector is a big product, man, of that juice. He's done. Anthony Smith is going to knock him out, and I played him at plus 120.
Yeah, I got both these guys a C-. The reality is Hector Lombard's 39 years old. He, because I kind of mentioned earlier, he hasn't won a bout since January 2015. That's over 2.5 years. How often do you see a fighter lose 3 fights in a row, over nearly 40 years old, and actually come back and beat a younger fighter who's bigger than him, has KO power, and is younger by I think Anthony Smith is what? I'm going to look up his age.
29, I think.
29 years old, so 10 years younger, and actually win the fight. I don't know.
At least 10 years.
Based on that kind of scenario, how often does that old guy actually come back and end the losing streak? Has it ever happened? It's very rare. And the line is nearly even. Originally I was kind of like, do I trust Anthony Smith? He had a nice win last time, but he's been kind of untrustworthy. Man, I kind of think it might be the time to bet Anthony Smith. I'm kind of getting there. I'm a little hesitant just because just some of the things he's done in the past, but the fate of Hector Lombard is real. The scenario, just the way this angle plays out, it's hard to see Hector Lombard winning this bout. It really is. And I bet, living in Florida, he's probably dealt with this, just the Hurricane Irma stuff. It's just not a great scenario for him heading into this bout. I have to be honest. Anthony Smith is the pick, and he'll very likely be a bet for me on this card. I think we're going to skip the co-main because they just announced who he's going to be. Mike Perry's going to be fighting. Thiago Alves was fighting on this card. And another guy that trains out of ATT with Hector Lombard, he was affected by the storms, the hurricane that passed through, and that was the reason why he didn't come up for this bout. So keep that in mind. He's facing someone called Alex Reyes,
who hasn't fought since 2015 in August.
Well, I thought he fought once. I think he fought once just recently.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
he fought though.
Yeah,
he hadn't fought in 2 years, and then he fought last month.
He just fought 3 weeks ago.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so he fought once and had a 2-year layoff, just fought once. He was a King of the Cage champion. How much you, believe in that and put stock in that, that's up to
155, though, too. Yeah, right. He's coming up fighting 170er with massive KO power.
Yeah, absolutely. I should... depending on how much video there is on Alex Reyes, I'm hoping there's a decent amount. I'll do a scouting report. You'll find that over at MMAOddsbreaker.com. Should be able to find that, the day before the fights. But so look out for that. And if we have any additional thoughts on this, we'll tweet them out. Moving up, last fight on the card, main event. We got 2-division World Series of Fighting GOAT champion David Branch taking on, what's possibly biggest hog in UFC, Luke Rockhold.
Definitely on a Caucasian. Definitely the biggest hog on a Caucasian.
I don't know, Connor with that cup though.
Yeah, true.
Little cheater going on there, in my opinion. But yeah, Nushan, I'll start it off. Who do you think is going to win? The former
World Series of Fighting middleweight champion or the former UFC and Strikeforce middleweight champion?
I mean, it's hard to go against Rockhold here. I did lose my ass when he fought Bisping. I mean, I think a lot of us did. Yeah.
We all did.
So that's kind of always in the back of my mind, as along with his chin that seems to have been cracked since TRT or TTUR, TRT Vitor, and yeah, because I mean, if Bisping's knocking you out because you have your hands down, it's not a good sign. David Branch is tough. But Luke Rockhold has so much more skill than him. This is a tough matchup for him. I got Luke Rockhold in a couple different small plays. Not going huge on him. I mean, it is a big number, and he does have that chin. That's one thing to worry about. But he should tool up David Branch, who has struggled against some fighters that aren't anywhere near Rockhold's caliber.
Wes, main event thoughts.
Yeah, we're gonna. That's gonna be a spot our boy Bob Voss might want to listen to it on about 3 or 4 times speed instead of his almost 2 times speed of podcast listening. But I'm absolutely banking here. Rocco he did not think Bisping had anything for him, man. I know he got caught and knocked, but I think that was truly a lot to do with him just not even thinking he was going to be touched with something like that. Like Sean just said, Branch has struggled. You know, he's gotten wins, but he's struggled with guys way less talented than Rockhold. You can't knock his winning streak, but man, Clifford Starks had him in some bad spots. Vinny had him in bad spots. Lewis Taylor had him in bad spots. He had a good win against Jocko.
But even then, it went to a split.
It's just he's in all those kind of close fights against marginal type guys, man. And Rockhold is not a marginal type guy. And we gotta think that Rockhold is a little bit motivated now. I would think. So I cannot see David Branch beating Luke Rockhold in a 5-round fight, man. If he does, then more power to him. I just don't see any scenario to where he gets a winner. He's not gonna outgrind Luke Rockhold up against a cage for 5 rounds. That's just not gonna happen. He's not gonna hold Rockhold down for 5 rounds. That's not going to happen. And I mean, when's the last time that he smashed a guy like that? It's just I can't see it, man. I got Rockhold in a few things as well at around -400. Looking at the points handicap, I just see him getting it done here. I don't know if he can finish Branch. Branch, he's really tough, and he keeps fights close. I could see him staying in there. Maybe gets a finish. Maybe Rocco gets a finish. 5 rounds is a long time with Rocco, man. But I'll just stick with the money line and the points handicap. And I think Rocco gets it done.
Yeah, I got David Branch B-, Luke Rockhold A+. I've been high on Luke Rockhold a long time. I said at one point that him and Weidman would face each other a few times. Mm-hmm. I guess I didn't forecast Chris, I guess I'll leave it at this. I didn't forecast Herb Dean would let that fight go on 3 minutes too long, and that it would take about 10 years off Chris Weidman's life before I said that. So let's just leave it at that. I think part of the reason, and I don't want to make up too many excuses for Luke Rockhold because he should have completely smashed Michael Bisping last time, was he was having problems with that knee, leading into that fight, and it kind of limited his kicking game. So he was kind of focusing more on his pure boxing, and that's clearly not his strength. His strength is his leg kicks and just athleticism and where he can land leg kicks. I mean, he's one of the best in the sport in terms of just what he can do with his legs in terms of kicking. It's awesome to watch.
You got 3 of them. If you got 3 legs, it makes it a lot
easier. But yeah, he can land to the head, to the body, to the lower legs. And his submission game is really crafty. And Dave Branch just hasn't faced anybody of that caliber before with that level of athleticism and speed. I mean, Branch he does like to do kind of like a grinding type of thing. He can try that against Rockhold, but eventually he's going to get caught with one of those leg kicks, and I think it's going to be a show over for him. Branch is a good story, and he's a New York guy, so I respect that. And he's a kind of like a hard-working family man, but he's just, he's facing a different kind of thing. As Wes likes to say, there's levels to the sport, and that's what this is. So Rockhold wins. I think in terms of a consensus, we were talking about a very chalky parlay. Something we
it's going to win, though. It's going to win.
Yeah, but we're hoping, we think it was going to win with Luke Rockhold, Grigor Gillespie, and Kamaru Usman. The three thoroughbreds of this sport.
The points handicap for Usman, I think, when it comes out, we were thinking, right?
Yeah, you can get the 3 straight chalk for minus 140. But the points handicap should get it at plus money, I would think.
With the Usman and the other 2, yeah. So just keep that in mind. I think it's going to be, I think it's actually, a decent card on paper. There's a lot of, high-end talent here. Like I said, thoroughbreds, and there could be some smashing there. There could be some grinding type of fights, not as interesting. But in terms of the talent on the card for a fight night card, that's kind of just a random event. It's not bad. And you got one former champion on this card, and you probably have a future champion, on this card as well. So it's going to be fun.
And if you don't like it, you can probably watch a pretty good boxing fight on Saturday as well.
Oh yeah, that's right. Both at the same time.
Pretty good. You can watch one of the best boxing matches they can put on in the sport today.
Have you guys seen that commercial they've been running with like the old school like clothing, and like they have Triple G and Canelo like looking like 1920s gumshoes? And
I watched the 24/7 when they kind of made it and stuff like that. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. I like that.
Matty tweeted out a video earlier that y'all need to watch. It's really, really cool. On his feed that he put up, kind of got a Rocky kind of thing to it. You need to check it out. It's really, really good.
So, yeah, check that out. I'm sure we'll be tweeting out lots of fun
Bet
stuff.
Triple G.
Yep.
He's going to win.
And, I kind of agree with that as well. I'll take power over finesse, most of the time. So I believe that's it. We'll be back next week. I believe we got a
Saturday morning card.
Or is it Friday night card?
Well, it's the 23rd in Japan, so I'm assuming that'd be a morning card, right?
I think it's a Friday night card here, actually.
It's going to probably start at like 3 in the morning or something, right? 3 or 4 in the morning?
Don't think so.
It says that it's
looking it up now.
The 23rd, which is Saturday in Japan.
I'm looking at
what does that mean for us?
Looking at UFC's website, and by the way, the Pettis Poirier fight is the headliner for that Norfolk card.
Yeah, that's stupid, by the way, because we already have a line for it. So why are they taking so long to finalize that as well?
If per UFC's website, it's on FXX. Boy, I can't tell you what channel that is, but and it starts at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time on Friday.
Huh?
Wow. They're
gonna have it Saturday morning in Japan.
Yeah, that's what that means.
That's how they're doing it. They did it there. They did that one time. They was there not too long ago too. It was in the morning.
But I'll tell you that the most underrated fight of the fall is on that card, and it is the co-main event of that card.
Godella versus Andrade.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good fight.
That is a firecracker.
I thought you were talking about Ishihara versus. I thought you were talking about Ishihara versus Rolando Dai.
Oh god.
Oh god.
Or my bitches.
Frank Waston's fighting on that card against Gokhan Saki. Oh, that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's 2 fights on that card that I'm really looking forward to. But the rest of that is going to be yuck. But
Yeah,
we'll be there,
in.
and we'll talk about it, and we'll talk about lisps and like quality booties and
Bitches.
and bitches and. Yeah, that's going to be fun. So, we'll be back next week talking about that stuff. Until then, enjoy the fights.